The
Welcome to the Property Lane, where it's everything real estate. My name is Catherine Nanteza. I'm your host, as always. Dear viewers, welcome back from that previous episode where we were talking about what's happening in the housing sector, in real estate, what is government planning for us, but also we had with us a guest who is also a brother living in the US, telling us about practicing real estate in the US, and we were comparing notes. How do we clean up this sector? How do we ensure we can make more money, we can all benefit, we can all get homes, and how do we do that in a regulated environment? Dear viewers, we continue an episode with the same guests we had last time. And for those who are joining us for the first time, please welcome with me our Director of Housing under the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Director Dev.
Hello viewers. Once again, it's a pleasure being hosted on the Property Lane. And as the director responsible for the housing sector in the country, it is always a pleasure to talk to you and brief you on the developments, but also guide each other on what's coming up and what's good to improve our sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as director has mentioned, the real estate bill that is being formulated has been one that is beefed up with a lot of experience, knowledge, and we've picked from different countries. We did a benchmarking in South Africa, we've done Nairobi, India, and other countries. And the people handling the bill are also well-traveled. We are comparing. And apart from that, we also last time had a guest who is joining us still tonight, a guest from the United States of America, a real estate agent and a realtor Isaac Kamia Mato. Please introduce.
Thank you, Catherine, our viewers. It's nice to be here, and thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you learned from what we discussed last time, and whatever we are going to discuss, we hope it will be very helpful for our country in general and for you as a person.
Thank you, Isaac. As we grow as a country, yes, we want to invest here, but we also want to have investments abroad, and we need to know how that is done. We need to know how we can enrich our fellow Ugandans, and there is no faster way to grow than the real estate. I think we all agree. Last time we talked about the real estate bill and how one gets registered. This time we wanted to look at still further the real estate bill, but now more into the practical bit. You know that for real estate, to get the right values, we look at previous transactions, right? But the problem we're having, and as we discussed last time, is it is hard to compare when no one is registering anywhere the transactions that are happening. There is no central database. We can say we will run to the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, but Isaac, you know that you can sell property and still not transfer it.
Right, yeah.
And so the director will not know. And by the time he gets to know, that property has moved hands like 5-10 times. And this time we want to find a way of how to manage that. Because it is not a disadvantage. It is something that helps both of us. Because tomorrow, you will also want to buy and want to compare. And then they will tell you, the property you bought 3 years ago is now at 1 billion from 500 million. And you don't know how it jumped. How is it done in the US?
So US actually is way ahead on that because first of all, the Realtor Association, they came up with a system which they call the MLS. Every realtor is using that system. But also we have the public platforms that we use to market properties.
What's the MLS?
MLS is the multiple MLAs, multiple listing service. So it's basically only the agents, the licensed agents have access to it. But if I'm representing you, I'll put your property on that system and put because when I do that, everyone is going to see the property. Everyone across the state will see. But that system is very helpful because it can show you when the property was last sold.
Oh.
Yes.
You are going to have to demonstrate that for us somehow, for our viewers to see.
So if 20 years ago I listed my property at 200,000, today someone bought it 20 years ago and the same person is selling it now. You can see in the system that it was bought 200,000 20 years ago, and now you know how much it's selling right now. So the value can actually be seen. Usually those platforms like Zillow, Realtor.com can give you an estimate.
Now what's Zillow?
Yeah, can give you an estimate that the value, it was 200, but now it has increased in its value. Maybe it sells about 450, but of course that's not the final. The final value is the appraisal.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that gives you where you should start.
Gives you where you stand, and if you are a buyer or the seller, you know that I cannot sell this more than this.
What else does it do? That MLS or those platforms?
So it's basically
what else does it show?
Marketing platform. It shows every information on the property,
like
the taxes for the property.
I think director is happy now.
It will show you the taxes for the property. It will show you the disclosure, the issues, the defects, if any, on the property, because one of the rules and regulations, the seller must disclose any known defect on the property. How they do that is they write it on the MLS and they tell you this has a leaking roof. So buy it knowing that the roof is leaking.
Okay.
If you don't disclose
do people buy even with the leaking roof?
Oh yeah, they do. As long as it's disclosed. If they buy unknowingly and the seller never disclosed such kind of information, they are in trouble.
Who gets in trouble in that instance?
The seller and the listing agent for the seller, because they are mandated to disclose known defects. What that known defects? If they didn't know that it was leaking, it's not known. But any known defects, they are supposed to do so. So all the kind of information that you want to know about the property, when it last sold, how much has been on the market, how long has been on the market, and how much was sold more than once. Maybe 20 years it has been sold 5 times. You will see all that information.
And you will see at what price it has been sold in all the 20 years.
In all the 20 years. Sometimes you put it on the market and take it off the market.
Why?
You will see that it was removed on the market and not sold.
That it was put for 15 minutes
and was taken off. So anything you do about the property itself, they will know.
Wow.
And now these other platforms like the Zillow, the Realtor.com picks information automatically from the MLS system. So it is very clear you cannot do anything around the property because everything is seen.
By everyone.
By everyone.
All that is public information.
All that is public.
Do you get to know who owns it?
Who owns what?
The property.
That is the information that agents should know in the MLS.
So the public only sees this.
Sees the general bit of it.
Because now my developers were beginning to worry.
If you want to know the details, there are other online platforms that you can go and put in the property details, and it can give you the owner, not the contact information, but the name of the owner.
Yes.
That this property is owned by Catherine. And when they bought it, but they can't give you the details of the person, maybe the proper contact information.
Director, how do we know that we are buying the right property here in Uganda?
You see, every property here sits on a land parcel.
Okay.
Plot, maybe plot this Kampala Road, or plot this Ndinda Avenue, whatever you are interested in. As a ministry, we have the land information system.
Okay.
And when you bring the plot number and the street or the block number, we can tell you who owns this plot, and we can even go beyond and say whether it is encumbered, it has a mortgage or what. That information can be got. That's why apart from housing, we're also working with the land information system, and we have opened the public portals to specific professionals, lawyers, bankers, etc., who can be able to get information on this. But as he said, details of the contacts of the person who owns that, I think now the agent can be able to discuss more on that. But going forward, definitely as we work on the real estate bill, we shall need to have the database, and then we have to develop other instruments that can facilitate the property transactions more efficiently and provide more information both to the buyers and the whole public to ensure that they do understand better what they are dealing in and so on and so forth, and they can be able to compare a number of products across board and then find one which suits their interests. And of course, the issue of, I don't want to go into the issue of the commission, but we are trying to be as clean as possible, so that those transactions, who pays what, who pays for who.
That's
of course,
Isaac
has, yes, Isaac has hinted on it that in one transaction there can be 10 players.
Yes.
Who determines
the 10 players?
The 10 players, the transaction, and how much each of these, because they don't simply transact, but they also have to make some payment. The valuer, the appraiser, the lawyer, and
agents.
so forth, the agents on both sides, who pays who, and so on. Is it predetermined, or because I think here we have a scenario where people hold the information, simply say, aha, you have a property where? How much is it? If I bring anybody above that, don't say anything. And in the end, don't be surprised if they bring someone almost twice.
Yes.
I'm not saying it happens regularly, but
that's what the law is trying to cover.
Yeah, that's what the law is going to cover, including anti-money laundering. You don't need to use properties to launder money across the globe, and so on and so forth.
Well, as we take a very short break, we are going to come back on that issue you mentioned of anti-money laundering. You know, here when you ask people who are buying property, where did you get your money from? They think you're just being nosy, or you're just being you're getting into their business. But the Anti-Money Laundering Act requires a real estate agent to ask such questions. Dear viewers, as we come back shortly, we are going to look at how to curb fraud. You know, we continue that discussion, and we will look at also affordable housing. See you shortly. Welcome back, our dear viewers, from this interesting discussion as we continue this discussion on regulating the real estate sector. Director, you mentioned the Anti-Money Laundering Act. And Isaac, how is that in the US? You say that when you buy property, can you buy with cash? And when you pay cash, does the seller get the money directly? Because here we can carry, you know, the sack to the seller.
That's very possible.
Not that always, but yeah.
Yes, common. I have worked in this business for so long, I have never seen a seller receiving cash. Not anywhere. Even if someone pays
in
cash.
The US,
in the US, I have never seen. So the answer is no. All transactions are done online. Most of the transactions are done
even payments.
Even payments. As a matter of fact,
do you trust that as an agent? Because I would be worried.
Well, the process, like we talked about expertise, there are people that are professional and they are involved. If you are getting a loan, for example, and you're a buyer, and they are supposed to pay the loan to the seller for selling their property, that money goes to the seller's attorney.
Attorney, not the seller's account.
No.
So the trust account, Director Dev.
Yeah.
they work even for selling, not just for
which
property
usually they
management.
call the escrow account. So it goes to the account that the attorney, the lawyer manages. It doesn't go to the account of the seller. So it's the lawyer, the attorney, that distributes that money accordingly. We'll give a commission to you. We'll give the appraiser his money. Everyone that is involved, they remove all that percentages before they give the seller their share. So that's how it's done. They will never receive cash.
Before we took the break, you were shocked when the director was saying that you find that a broker is saying is topping up on the money of the seller. You know, the seller says, I'm selling my property 100 million, and the broker says, if I top up with 30, the 30 is mine. And so you find that a sale is being frustrated because someone has a percentage. Of course, director, as we are getting more and more professional, that is reducing. But of course, the professionals are still few. They're still few. Would that happen in the US, where you've listed a property and then the broker comes and says, I'm talking?
So in most states, it's illegal. It's very, very illegal. Especially in the state of Massachusetts, you can't do that. If the property sells a certain amount, you have to declare all that to the seller. And you only get your commission as the agent. There is no such kind of thing in Massachusetts where someone has to say, I'm going to sell it this much. You take your portion and the balance is mine. No, that's very legal. And it's really very disappointing.
I think that is fraud.
It is really fraud, and I don't know what we need to do to regulate that. But it's very, very unfair to the buyers and to the seller themselves.
Actually, the sellers, I witnessed where the seller literally gets pressure. You know, having to count 30 million when you're taking only 100, but you're signing for 130, and you're paying taxes as the buyer for all that, and yet the seller didn't get. So I think it's best, directors, we are coming up with a law to leave it at percentages. Or if there is an agreed sum, it should be known from the start. Yeah, moving on. Still talking about the Anti-Money Laundering Act. As are agents also in the United States required to declare or to ask the buyer where the money is coming from?
Where the buyer's money is coming from?
Yes.
It's not really a responsibility of the agent to ask for money from the buyer. Basically, the role of the agent is to show you the property you are interested in. And if you want, they draft a contract until you get the offer. By the way, in the United States, there is no thing of negotiating by phone. You send in your offer, it's like a bid. You send in your offer, another person sends in their offer. The highest bidder wins the property.
In Uganda,
so that's not how it works.
Everything gets done there.
And most of the loans, especially I'm talking about mortgage loans, because most properties are expensive, very, very rare. You find people paying cash. If they do, they really have enough money to do that. But most of the loans, the transactions are done online. They are done. You don't have to be there to receive cash or anything. So I don't see the opportunity of someone doing laundering of money. So it's not really possible.
Moving on to the issue of affordable housing. What plans do we have to ensure all Ugandans can own a home, Director?
The issue of affordable housing.
Yes.
Which is emphasized in our national housing policy, is very central and critical to our masses. But what is it in housing that makes it expensive, that it's not affordable? The biggest challenges we have is the availability of long-term financing for both the developers and the buyers. Most of the developers borrow from the financing institutions, maybe on a short term, but when they are financing long-term housing projects, and that tends to become expensive. Yes, as government, we are working to ensure that we put in place an instrument the mortgage liquidity facility.
Okay.
We want to get a mortgage liquidity facility at low interest rates, maybe of 4 or 5%, which financial institutions, the banks, can be able to get access to, and then they can be able to lend to the developers or to the mortgage takers at interest rates which are less than, which are manageable, less than, in a single digit, less than 10%, because currently our mortgages are one of the most expensive. Right. And of course, we also need to look at how can other informal people, maybe those not in the formal sector, get access to the money, to the mortgages. Yes, people who can team up and be working together, saving together, because most of the mortgages are usually linked to the formally employed who are easy to appraise. But there are a lot of money among the business people who may not necessarily be in formal employment, and other small groups in circles, and those can also be able to be assessed, and they can qualify for some of this financing. And of course, one of the major challenges is that usually housing delivery in Uganda is done at the individual level. Yes. And when you do it at the individual level, it means that you will purchase cement in smaller quantities, you purchase roofing material in smaller quantities. As our brother from the US has said, most properties are developed massively by construction companies. Of course, that is the direction in which we want to go. Even we are working on other institutionalized systems like housing cooperatives, where people can come together and team up, really maybe start of them, where the actual target is a housing. But when you pull resources and you are many, yeah, definitely you do it better. You pull resources as a cooperative, you get one farm to construct for all of you. Yes. The farm gets materials in bulk. We are all winners. We are all winners. It's a big question, but we have to tackle it that way.
Oh, I am very, very glad that government is thinking in that direction, because the other question I normally get is from developers who could have access to financing, but the land values are so high.
Yes.
And they're like, is there a way we can team up as private sector developers with government to be able to bring the cost of of housing down, especially in terms of providing land, providing government guarantees. Is that possible?
Yeah, that is the direction and the thinking. And even last week we are presenting a cabinet paper to cabinet on affordable housing, and we are looking at available strategies, including land banking. You see, even most of our new cities, they're having a serious housing question, which can only be addressed if we have land banking and well planned, and then we have massive housing development, among others. Incidentally, we have financial institutions in all these places. The question is how to address the question of capital and affordability and materials.
Okay, what's the comparison in the US? How are you able to, do you own a house in the US? Is it possible? How are you able to, how are you addressing the issue of affordable housing?
So maybe I will talk a little bit about the rates over there, over here, and over there. Of recent, especially last year, we had serious issues with the rates.
Interest rates.
Really high.
How high?
At the highest, they went towards 8. Now, if Uganda talks of 17, 19, I get surprised. And it was really bad that it went to 8.
Okay.
During COVID, we actually had...
Those are mortgage rates?
Mortgage rates.
Okay.
We actually had rates as low as 2.5.
Wow.
2.5. So... I really understand the challenge of the way people getting loans to get this done, but we think that it's challenging over in US, but it's worse here, so something needs to back to work on. And about the affordable housing, I think that states are doing a lot that they could to provide affordable housing for people. And that's where there are rules and regulations that govern the land use. There's specific.
I've heard of something like rent control.
There's a specific piece of land that you are required to put an apartment there that is affordable.
Oh.
You don't set your own prices.
Okay.
So they try their best to do that, and I think that's one of the things that are helpful. But still, there are challenges with housing. I also work in the housing sector specifically with homeless people, but a lot of people are homeless. They can't afford to buy a house, but they can't afford to rent.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really very challenging. And that cuts across all countries. It's not just in Uganda, but it cuts across all countries. I have seen people homeless. People die when they are on the streets. So it's a big challenge, but at least they are working on it. Because of there's so many people that keep coming in the country, it's not a challenge that is likely to stop.
Wow.
They are trying their best.
Thank you so much, dear guests. I think with Isaac's final word, we are not that at that level. We have homelessness, but not to that degree. In Uganda, you can't fail to find where to sleep.
Yeah, the African social structure
You can't
tends
fail to
to.
find where to sleep. So thank you so much, dear viewers. We have enjoyed the show with Isaac and director Dev. I hope you really did learn something. We have more coming up on Property Land. We will be hosting Isaac as an agent to take us through how to get a house or own a property in the United States of America. For now, see you next time.
The Property Lane.